Welcome back to another episode of the List Building Lifestyle. I'm your host, Igor Kafetz, and today I'm hosting Patrick Stiles, my good friend and the founder and the owner, the CEO of Vidalytics, a company that's taking the fight to the likes of Wistia and others. I'm not even sure who's the other competitors are, but let me tell you, if you ever if you ever paid over $1,000 a month for your video hosting bill, which I have. You're going to love this interview because Patrick has developed a piece of software, or if you will, a service slash software that I think is revolutionizing the video industry, especially for companies that, like us, rely a lot on video to deliver the sales messages and the content messages. It's super fast video hosting. It's incredibly detailed analytics, all kinds of bells and whistles that only direct response marketers and list builders can appreciate, and an overall incredible experience and a super attractive pricing. So, before we dive into the conversation, I just want to highly recommend wholeheartedly that you check out Vidalytics.com and see how they stack up against all the other video hosting platforms. Because, on one hand, you can't really host your VSLs on YouTube. That's not going to work, even though it's free. Vimeo is a piece of crap, and I'm not afraid of getting sued for saying that. I've used this for many years. I'm telling you, it's a piece of crap. Do not host your VSLs and webinar replays on Vimeo. And Wistia, even though I've been with them for like 7 years before walking away and switching over to Vidalytics and working with Patrick, which is an incredible experience. Wistia is just daylight robbery. I'm not even sure what the heck are they charging so much for, because even though they got fast hosting and everything, I mean, Vidalytics is just as fast. I'm not sure why are we overpaying. So if you're still using free platforms like YouTube and semi-free platforms like Vimeo or super expensive platforms like Wistia, then you got to do yourself a favor and go check out Vidalytics. With that said, Patrick, welcome to the List Building Lifestyle.
Yeah, thanks so much, Igor. Thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
Yeah, no, I wasn't planning to like giving a full-on endorsement to
Yeah,
Vidalytics. I just couldn't help myself because, every now and again I'll get an email. Obviously it's an automated email from your system saying something like, "Hey, you're almost reached your threshold. You're about to go over the bandwidth
yeah.
limitations." And I'm thinking, oh damn, they're gonna slap a $500 fee on top, this month or something. And then it's like, if you keep going at the same rate, you're gonna pay an extra $7. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna eat that up. So yeah, I really appreciate what you've built, because we've tried different all kinds of different services for video. The Wistia, been a long time with Wistia. We've done YouTube, we've done Vimeo, we've even done some hosting on something called Bunny,
Yeah.
which, oh my god, it was so hard to use. And we still use it for some of our really deep backend stuff where you don't really need any fast video playback. But it's a pain in the ass to a point where I don't even log in there anymore. I just can't stand it. So I've
Mm,
got like a guy in India, our tech guy, who does
yeah.
all of that. It's like, okay, dude, go grab this from Bunny, and he goes in and he spends 30 minutes looking for one file. So yeah, so I'm excited about this interview. We're definitely going to talk about the state of video, state of video marketing, but you also have amazing stories to share. I know you've had an incredibly difficult, I'd say, start to your entrepreneurial career because of the difficult start that you got in life. So why don't we go there? So how did you end up
Yeah, sure.
becoming an entrepreneur, and how did you end up starting your first online business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like to say it's a little bit of a joke, but I like to say that I became an entrepreneur at the age of 13 when I got a vial of acid and I started selling it to all my friends. So yeah, selling drugs was like my first kind of entrepreneurial endeavor. And I remember after a week of selling that vial, I had to pay, the person that got it for me, and the dealer and
Your
stuff. And
supplier.
yeah, that's the suppliers, right? There was some middlemen in there, and I made $100 So at the end of that, 13-year-old boy, I bought a BB gun, which is like the most like 13-year-old boy thing to do with your illegal drug money. But fast forward like 3 years to the age of 16, I'd gone through like selling pot and selling ecstasy, selling anything I could get my hands on. But by 16, I
You
was
had a
selling it.
product line at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some backing offers.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, but I was selling an ounce of speed a week and making $1,000 a week. So in 3 short years, I 10x my income. So if anybody's looking to 10x
Almost
their
sounds like a
income,
coaching program pitch, you know?
yeah, if you wanna 10x your income, have you considered crime? So and it worked for me. No, I'm joking. It didn't work for me because an occupational hazard of selling speed is that I was injecting meth every single day. So yeah, I was a junkie by the age of 16. Yeah, and it led to a bunch of problems, as you can probably imagine. I was in and out of jail. I was thrown out of school, and at 16, 17, I went away to a year-long rehab as an alternative to juvenile prison. And when I was in there, my best friend died from a heroin overdose. Um, so yeah, the last place I actually saw him was another friend's funeral 2 weeks before that, who also died from heroin. So that was kind of my start. But how I actually went legitimate is that I got out of rehab. I was clean for a while. Then I wound up kind of going back to the lifestyle, and I got in a bunch of trouble. So I started dating this girl that was a prostitute. I met her in a crack house right when she got out of an insane asylum. She'd been sent there when her ex-boyfriend was arrested for manufacturing methamphetamines. So he was serving 2 life sentences. So we met, and it was love at first sight, because she was single. Yeah,
And had a
because
pulse, obviously.
her man was locked away. But yeah, it was love at first sight, or as detectives called it, the beginning of an inter-county crime spree. And there was burglaries, car thefts, and high-speed chases. And at the end of the third high-speed chase in a week, we got arrested. And that sealed my fate to actually becoming an entrepreneur. And I didn't know it at the time, but I like to think that our lowest moments are also kind of our finest moments, And what wound up happening is that I got my life together. I stopped doing drugs like that. I stopped, living that lifestyle. And I, basically went into sales, and I got commission only jobs at companies where I was being hired by the owners. But they're really rinky dink kind of places. But I learned a skill, and I learned recruiting, headhunting. And I got fired twice in 7 months during the financial meltdown of 2008, 2009. I was a top producer despite the economy just doing horrible. And what wound up happening is that after the second firing, I was like, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to start my own recruiting firm. So that was my first business 16 years ago, when I was in my 20s.
That's so this is like one of those moments where I think Napoleon Hill said every every challenge, every disaster, every negative event carries an equal seed of opportunity. Is that what you mean
Oh,
when you
wow.
say that our lowest moments are greatest moments?
Yeah, I think so. And also, it's just like, you're down and out. And it's just kind of like, what are you made of? What are you going to do with this? Are you going to let it defeat you? Or like, are you going to find out who you really are and what you're made of? There's a quote from Pema Chodron, and it's only to the extent that we open ourselves to annihilation that we can find that which is indestructible inside of us. So you could kind of say that, I've sought a lot of annihilation in my life.
Yeah, it sounds like you got off to a really terrible start, to be honest.
Yeah, that's one way to
And
characterize
it
it.
really puts, it really puts things into perspective when you hear people complain about having a difficult life, and yet sort of that caused for you to end up in a situation where nobody would hire you, or at least the jobs you
Yeah,
would be hired for weren't very, very good.
yeah,
So you said you got fired twice from the recruiting
mhm,
jobs, and then
yeah,
you started your own recruiting firm, and then you switched to online marketing.
yeah. So I started my own recruiting firm, and at first I was terrified to do this, but I closed my first deal, and I was charging about like 20K a pop, to put together a candidate. You know, it's a high ticket, low volume kind of business. And I went from being terrified that I wasn't going to be able to pay my bills, that I wasn't going to be able to make it, to then being just bored with doing this. So a year later, after starting that business, I had some money in the bank and was kind of losing my mojo. And I read The 4 Hour Work Week, which I think a lot of people read that book, especially back in the day, like kind of, 2007, 2010, that kind of window, when it was super popular. And I read that book and it just hit me at the right time. It hit me at the right time where it was like, hey, have an online business, outsource a lot of the work, be location independent, travel the world, live life on your own terms. And I wanted to do something like that. I didn't want this kind of default path in life where I wind up like, going to college, getting a job, getting married, having 2.5 kids and living in the burbs with a white picket fence because I think that's what my neighbors want, you know? So I wanted something that was more exciting, something that, brought me alive because I was used to this crazy lifestyle. I was used to like, doing drugs and like, really kind of living in an extreme way. So, I had to find something that was just as exciting as that lifestyle. My recoveries had to kind of mirror my addiction where it's had to be like just kind of equally as potent. So I read The 4 Hour Work Week. I started a supplement company, Zen Life Supplements. I didn't know anything about marketing. And I really just kind of stuck with it. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my entrepreneurial career, but the one thing I've done well is not give up and just grind it out. And one of those reasons is because I just had no other options. What else am I going to do? Go back and get a job? That's going to be extremely difficult. So I stuck with it until I made my very first VSL. And this is about like 15 years ago. And I didn't realize it, but it was my first VSL, but it was also probably one of the very first VSLs just in the world. Now
Be
they're
careful.
super.
We don't want John Benson suing you for saying that.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I
I'm
know
just kidding.
John, the
But
Godfather
be
of
careful.
VSL.
Seriously, be careful. Whenever you mention anything about VSL, just be careful. Get it approved with John first. And
Yeah, John's one of our users. He was actually one of our first power users, one of our first big names that used Vidalytics. So yeah, I probably didn't beat him to the punch or anything like that, but I didn't even know what a VSL was. I was just like, I want like this thing's not working. Let me just try something else and try something else and try something else until I tried a video. And that first video I made, which was a total piece of shit. All right. It was so ugly. Uh, yeah, I could tell
by
you
the
about it,
way,
but just take my
a
word.
side note about ugly. I somehow to this day, and I've been in the game for for 15 plus years, I
Yeah.
haven't been able to get a sales piece, whether via sell or webinar, sales page, anything, a
Yeah.
beautiful one to outperform an ugly one. I don't know why is that, but anytime I run a test where the only variable is the design layout and the way it looks,
Yeah.
ugly beats beautiful every time.
Yeah. That's what I tell my girlfriend. So, so at any rate, yeah. I mean, I think the market is kind of changing, and but it's not hard and fast. It's not like this thing that like, oh, if you want to increase conversions, make it more beautiful, make do higher production value, get A roll as opposed to B roll or just like text on screen. But I do see some of those videos that are really kind of like attractive, scaling and working well. But oftentimes it'll also just be the first few minutes, kind of the hook of the video. But it's not hard and fast.
Yeah, no, it certainly isn't. I'm just saying that I haven't been able to get anything that beats like white background, black letters on white background, and me just speaking out the script. Like it's very hard to beat that. And
Yeah.
the whole premise of the VSL, it's just you reading your own sales letter on camera.
Yeah.
Why is that so
That's what I
effective?
did.
Even today, why is it so effective? I've got VSLs that have been running for 10 years, making me money every
Wow.
day. And I still think we are onto something like it's almost alchemy level stuff, if you know what I mean. Like for me, the first time I wrote a successful sales page, that was alchemy. It was like magic
Yeah.
because you put words to paper or to a website or basically some sort of media that can transfer the words to another human being, and somebody reads it or listens to it or watches the video and then they send you money.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, and it's up there with shooting dope. All right, in terms, all right, like take it from somebody that knows. All right, mainlining crystal methamphetamines is what you call a rush. All right, it really gets the heart pumping, and but like building an online business, and really kind of unlocking like a lifestyle and like a something that is just going to completely transform your life. It still stands out as one of the most exciting moments in my life when like a funnel just started working. I just told you my story. Like I was working on this business, for a year and a half at least before I had consistent sales. But as soon as they started clocking in, it was just like, it's working. And that first VSL that I made, it was so ugly, but it went on to sell over $1 million.
What was it selling?
It was selling a supplement. So Zen Life was a psychotropic brand for like anxiety, mood enhancement, insomnia, kind of products like that. But at the very beginning, we just had one, and it was for anxiety. So great product. I knew it worked because I took it myself. At times, I have to kind of chill out. I can be a little high strung. So I really believed in it, and so that's what it was selling.
So after making your first $1 million in revenue, what happened
Yeah.
next?
I really kind of unlocked a fairy tale like lifestyle. I continued building the business. I added other products. I hired a PhD to help like design the products, make sure they were as best as possible. But then I started traveling the world, and I was able to see 30 countries by my 30th birthday. I turned 30 in Bali. After doing like a road trip through Europe and going to Korea and Japan. After that, I continued to travel. I found my way to Argentina. I met now my ex-wife and my VP of Ops. We continue to work together to this day. But yeah, I bounced around the globe for a number of years, and yeah, continued building that business until I really kind of had the idea that there could be a video player that works a lot better for what I was doing, because I was using the other ones, the ones you mentioned at the beginning of this, right? I tried pretty much everything out there, and it was like a eureka moment when I was like, these things are not addressing like what I'm doing, like Wistia, right? I use them as well for a while, and they're a good product. It's not like it's bad tech or anything like that. Like you said, they're very overpriced, but the bigger problem that I ran up against was that they are just built for a different use case. They're built for like brand advertisers. They're built for content marketers. And, for somebody like, me or you, anybody working with paid traffic, with affiliates, with a lot of email traffic, people that care deeply about data, where little hinges swing big doors, like they just weren't addressing that. So that was like a eureka moment where I was like, hey, this thing isn't really addressing my needs. It could be so much better. And I'd been building custom tech in my supplement company. So I knew enough about tech that I was like, it could work this way. And this would be so powerful for me. I really wish I had this answer. I really wish I had this functionality. So that was kind of the birth of Vidalytics.
Nice. Well, it's good. So, what do you think now is the state of video? I mean, video is everywhere, obviously, and thanks
Yeah.
to TikTok and Reels, and now it's like mostly really short content. But in general, in the state of direct response, what do you think about video? Where does it stand now?
Yeah. I mean, video is like pretty much the main selling asset. It is the thing that does the heavy lifting in a lot of funnels. People ask me questions like, oh, well, like people don't want to watch long VSLs. And this is what I was hearing 10, 15 years ago. People don't want to watch long videos, or people are doing in-stream VSLs, like on Facebook, like running it as an ad. Uh, so yeah, they're like, VSLs are getting shorter and stuff like that. And, I was like, oh my gosh, VSLs are getting shorter. Our VSL's dying. Like, what's the future of this? And we went and looked at our data, right? And we have billions of plays, right? We have 178,000 videos on Vidalytics that we estimate have sold $3 billion. So we spent over a year with a team of product managers, engineers, myself, marketers, a PhD statistician, our director of business intelligence. And it was really hard, and the reason why it took so long is because we had so much data. We had to separate the signal from the noise to kind of figure out like what's actually working here, like just to kind of make sure that we had like clean data. And at the end of that, we found out a lot of kind of like surprising things, that VSLs aren't getting shorter, they're actually getting longer. So they're getting longer while engagement is actually going down a little bit, but conversion rates have actually gone up at the same time. So we're not talking about huge swings here, but maybe 20, 30 percentage points difference in conversion rate over the last like 3, 4 years.
So they're not getting shorter. That explains a lot.
Not on Vidalytics. And we're talking like, I think 3 years ago, they were like the average was 31 minutes. Today it's 36 minutes. However, we did find a sweet spot of conversions. And it's interesting because like when I was coming up, I'd hired like expensive copy coaches that had been there, done that, worked with the biggest brands in the world that are doing direct response. And they were like, oh, the longer the better, like drag it out and like don't drop the call to action until the very, very end of the video and somebody's frothing at the mouth ready to buy. And we actually found that the best converting VSLs on Vidalytics are between 15 and 35 minutes. So there is kind of this sweet spot, and it varies by industry. Like FinPubs, financial publishers, people with newsletters giving financial advice, the average VSL in that space is 59 minutes. So, but when you think about it, and I don't know if your audience is familiar with this, but those types of VSLs, those types of funnels, businesses, they are selling something where it's like they have a new investment opportunity and they have to kind of set the table as far as what's going on there. What's the story? What's going on?
Yeah,
Why is this different?
like this one thing that Vladimir Putin just did is going to cause World War III, and it's the greatest investment opportunity of all time, and you can get rich.
Yeah, right. This is the next Amazon. This is the next Microsoft. Yeah. So,
I
so
find
those
that
are
the survival VSLs are very similar too. It's like it's
okay.
all about
Yeah.
Trump just did what, and the U.S. warships are where, and they're firing at who? Gotta watch this VSL, otherwise World War III is coming. You have no idea.
Yeah.
I have
Right.
two longest running VSLs right now. One is a 42-minute VSL, and the other one is a 1 hour 2-minute VSL.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, I'm with
Have,
you
have you?
on the long VSLs.
Yeah. Well, so what we found is that an hour long video, engagement just totally plummets, and conversion rates also drop off significantly whenever a video kind of crosses that hour threshold. So, yeah. Have you tested different links?
I definitely have, and
Okay. I
and
definitely have.
I just can't get it. Like it's similar to the whole financial game. You
Yeah.
just there's a certain amount of stuff you have to say in a certain way
Sure.
for people to respond, and there's really no way to go around it. One time I created a VSL that was only 7 minutes long, where I just got to the point and I said, "Hey, let me
Yeah.
cut the fluff, and here's what you get, and here's the price, and here's the bonuses, and go buy." It was the worst VSL I've ever created. I swear.
Yeah.
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 I think I have a theory that VSLs and webinars and whatnot are almost like a form of entertainment for
Yeah.
people who like to buy. Every now and again I'll get hooked into a VSL
Hmm.
for a product I have no intention of buying, but
Yeah.
that is just so good. It
It's
just
so
speaks
juicy.
to so many of my, suppressed desires that I just can't help it. I just sit there and I
Yeah.
watch the VSL. And then,
Yeah.
my daughter would walk into the room and be like, "Hey, Dad, what you doing?" It's like, "Working,
Working.
working. I'm market research."
Market research. Look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I,
So video is definitely, like you said, it's pretty much it's the primary vehicle these days. But what about? Do you think the text-based long form sales pages are ever going to make a comeback?
you know what? Maybe once a year, every other year, somebody will be like, hey, we tested landing pages, like, and it converted better. And like they're kind of like expecting me to defend it. And I'm like, great, then run that. But I think that's really rare. And I think that they have a place. So like something you can do in Vidalytics, I'm not even sure if you know this. we have exit features such as exit thumbnails, exit playgates, which are opt-ins, and exit call to actions. And when I say exit, that means that it cues off of pausing. So somebody pauses the video and then these things appear. So it's kind of a chance to save the sale, because if somebody pauses the video, they're about to bounce. So what we actually recommend people to do is that you can set up different ones of these based off of the time in the video, right? So if somebody pauses at the beginning of your video, maybe it's like, hey, don't have time to read this, get it in your inbox and get the opt-in. Or don't have time to read it, or don't have time to watch this, click the button below and you'll be taken to the transcript type of thing.
Yeah,
So
Word does that all the time with the transcript.
yeah, they were really popular maybe 5, 7, 8 years ago. I don't see it as much now, but I still think it's a valid strategy, because some people do want to skim. Some people don't want to sit there and like watch a long thing. I always recommend putting on the speed controls because I'm an impatient person and I love having them.
Oh yeah,
So
I do love that. The only time,
yeah.
the other use to that is when I watch football, and then I would sometimes like slow it down just to see how they do the tricks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The
but
moves.
for VSLs, and I always double speed it. Yeah, absolutely. Especially
Yeah.
for some of the slower speakers. There's
Yeah.
some people there, like you can 10x the speed on the VSL. You'll still be able to clearly understand what they're saying. Uh, there's a great feature that you have with Vidalytics where it remembers where the user left off. So the
Yeah.
next time they come back, it actually continues from the same spot.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I like that.
Yeah, we call that resume play. So yeah, it's like a message. You can customize the copy and the colors and everything to say whatever you want, but the default is you've already started watching this video, and then it's like continue watching or start over. So they have the power to do that. So in the State of VSL's scaling playbook, this huge report that I was talking about that we did based off of all of our data, we found that that's correlated with higher conversion rates. What we also found, though, is that adding the seeking bar back onto the video also increases the conversion rate for returning traffic only. So we call that revisit seeking. So on the first pass, you can have either no seeking bar or rapid engage bar. Those are our kind of recommendations. Rapid engage bar is not a seeking bar. It looks like a seeking bar, but it moves faster in the beginning of the video and then kind of slows down to the actual speed. That's kind of something to hook people, to kind of, get them to be like, okay, what is this about? And then their completion bias kicks in and they're like, okay, well, I already started. I got to watch the rest of this because what else is going to come? And they're super curious. But then on the second pass, returning traffic, which on Vidalytics accounts for 12% of our total volume, right? Of all of our traffic, out of billions of plays, about 12% of it in 2025 is returning traffic. And we found that it converts at 62% higher than first-time viewers. What you can do with that, right? Now, I'm throwing out a lot of numbers, and I don't want it to just be kind of like data overload here, but what you can do is you can go and look at your own traffic and see if your returning traffic is converting at that benchmark, yes or no. And if it's below that, then you can have work to do to improve it, because you at least want to be average or better, right? You want to be top 10 percentile at least. So in those cases, you can have resume play turned on for returning traffic. You can have resume play turned on so they can pick up where they left off. You can add back in the seeking bar, and you can also do something where returning traffic sees a different video. And you can do that based on how far they watched into the original video. We call that a vid condition. So we have different kind of parameters, different conditions actually to set up those things, but it can be based off of a URL parameter. If they've already watched the video, if they reached a certain points in the video, then you show a different video to them. So in that kind of case, you could kind of have like closer copy, recap type of stuff, and kind of go for the sale.
Yeah, I had no idea about that feature. I'm gonna look into that,
Yeah,
especially when you're mailing a launch, and on the last day you can put in a Q&A or something. I like that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I wanna do something with you that we do here on the show, is that we do some rapid fire questions where I would ask you a series
Cool.
of questions, and what you do is you just answer them very quickly with one
Okay.
or two sentences without like rambling on for too long.
Okay. All right. You might need to cut me off.
Okay. I mean, it's like what? It's like maybe 10 questions, and but yeah,
Cool.
just try to get us like the instinctual sort of like
Yeah.
reflex. Uh,
Lightning round.
yeah,
Sure.
hip fire.
Okay.
What's the one book?
Declaration of Independence. Oh, sorry. I thought
What's
that
the
was the
one book
answer.
you've gifted more than any other?
Ray Dalio's Principles.
Why is that?
Because it is one of the most successful men in the world. And it's basically his framework, his rules for life and work. Really powerful.
Okay. What's something weird you do for your health? Because we know you're a health nut and you want to live forever. That would make most people raise an eyebrow.
I have a medical grade hyperbaric chamber in my garage.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Come to Austin, man. You can dive in it.
Nice. What else? What else you got in your garage?
A bunch of clutter. I have a freeze dryer in my garage. I freeze dry food so I can travel with it. So yeah,
Okay.
I have an ozone machine. I inject peptides. I have a sauna, cold plunge, home gym, red light therapy.
You're crazy. You're just nuts.
I'm a crazy person.
You're crazy.
Yeah. I think we established that at the beginning
Yes, we
of the
did. Yeah, I
podcast.
just want to make it just so people know. What's one boring but powerful thing you do consistently that moves the needle?
Our recruiting process is super robust. If you want, I can go into it, but we basically figure out the scorecard for the job, then the skills and traits that somebody needs to crush that scorecard. Then we design a recruiting process to go through it. And we have all these different steps and we're analyzing it all along the ways, including giving
You're
somebody a
boring
test
me
assignment.
already.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of work. It's tedious, but I have found like doing what we call simulation, a work like task to see somebody in action, to quantify their ability, and then doing a deep dive where we get the story of their career, kind of like a top grading interview, is yeah, it can be magic. It can be magic.
What is the most underrated software tool in your stack?
Vidalytics.
No, it doesn't count. You can't name your own software tool.
Yeah. All right. One that I use. It's not marketing software, but I use Scrivener. It's like a word processor for like writing. It's kind of meant for writing novels. But I don't write a lot of copy these days. I more just kind of go on camera. But it has a feature in it that I can pull up a little notepad and like take notes. So it'll be on top of all my other apps, and I use it constantly, all day, every day. I would pay for Scrivener just for that one feature.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Scribner. What's the one weird thing in your office setup that you swear by?
Let's see. All right. So I have a standing desk and I also have a stationary bike. So I will pull my bike underneath my desk and I'll ride it while I'm in meetings.
Okay. I got a good friend of mine actually does Zoom meetings while walking on the treadmill that's beneath the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can actually see him it's like go like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, Andy,
Yeah.
what's wrong? It's like, you do
Yeah.
you want to go to the bathroom? Do you
He's
want
doing a jig. Yeah.
what's the worst business advice you ever got?
Oof. Give up, quit. Yeah. Why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this? I've
Yeah.
got that one a few times.
Yeah.
Something you believe about success that most people would disagree with.
Oh, something I believe about success. Hmm. Uh, all right. I got one. The secret of success is that there is no secrets, right? Alex Hermosi talks about this. Violence is the answer. And it's just not giving up. It's grinding it out. It's just pushing through.
Sure, I'd agree with that. You,
Yeah.
you basically have to really, 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 really want it to go through a lot of crap on the way to the moment when you technically make
Yeah.
it. Although the
Yeah.
moment when you make it doesn't exist, but we'll leave that to a
Right.
different podcast episode.
Yeah.
If
I,
you
I
had,
guess I guess I have a little bit of another one and it kind of curtails on that is uh it's a head game. The hardest part is the mental game.
if you had to start all over tomorrow, no contacts, no money, no
Yeah.
team, what would be your first move?
No money, no contacts, nothing. I would I would start a service-based business. So because those are low barriers to entry, high margin, I would do that. I'd get paid to learn. And I would look to either productize that service or I'd look for a physical product or a tech product that I could build that basically kind of capitalizes on that. and I'd move through the different types of businesses so that I could build a business that is scalable, because services are easy to start but hard to scale.
Right. Okay. What's something about you that most people would never guess?
Yeah, I don't know.
The
Maybe
drugs. I'd
the
never guess
drugs. Yeah.
the drugs.
Yeah, right. Like the stuff I shared. Right. They would never guess it unless they got to know me and they're like, that guy's a little off. Yeah.
And one last question is, what's the best? Actually, two questions. What's the best and the worst compliment someone has ever given you?
The best compliment I've ever gotten. All right. I was probably 16 years old and I had track marks on my arm that were covered by like a long sleeve shirt. And I saw my old science teacher, Betsy Humphrey, and she was like, I was about to drop out and crash and burn. And she was like, you need to complete high school. And I was like, whatever. And she's like, and go to college. I was like, yeah, sure. And she's like, and get a master's. And I was like, what? And she's like, and get a PhD. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're the smartest student I've ever taught. And it was just like, whoa. Yeah. It was like one of those things that like later when I was down and out, I was like, maybe I can put my life back together. The worst compliment, one that I've gotten consistently from a lot of ex-girlfriends, is that I'm the best and the worst boyfriend they've ever had.
Well, as I'm curious, and in what way were you the best, and what way were you the worst?
Uh-oh. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that I can be a fantastic boyfriend. you know, you know, flowers, gifts, romantic gestures, caring, trying to show up, trying to create safety in the relationship. But I'm also a chaotic person. My sister likes to say that as a child, I had a problem with authority and I got in a bunch of trouble. As an adult, I had a problem with authority and I became an entrepreneur. And I think that, I've designed my life in a way where everybody shows up on my terms, because I have a big team. I don't answer to anybody, and I'm just used to being like fiercely independent. And I can be, very direct and abrasive and yeah, fast moving and just kind of like tough minded, where I'm just like, get over it.
I see what you mean. I have a very similar problem, but I happen to have married someone who's okay with that.
Yeah.
But I do catch a lot of shit from other people in my life for that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
And they confuse that with being like a dick, basically,
Yeah.
when in reality it's like you're just being very strict about your framework that you want to live,
Yeah.
and you just do it on your terms. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Or yeah, like being very direct. I think there's this difference between niceness and kindness. I think in Eastern Europe, right, where you are, like people are a lot more direct. And I find it so refreshing.
All right, man. Well, thank you for making the time to spend this time with me. Before we let you go, besides Vidalytics, which is something we've mentioned many times now in the interview, you've mentioned
Yeah.
that you've created a comprehensive report
Yeah.
with all sorts of data and statistics about, I'm assuming, what's working when you're selling with video. How can we get our hands on that?
If you go to stateofvsls.com, then that is where we have an opt-in and you can opt in for it. And then my team will be in touch and we can not only get these insights to you, but we can also help you set these up in your funnel. So basically just kind of making sure that you do the best practices. This is something where we have 7, 8, 9, and even 10-figure brands that use Vidalytics that are driven by video sales letters, video funnels. And what we have found is that they will split test us when they come over to us against the other video players. And what we found is that when it's set up right and the data is clean, right, there's no bias in the data, then we win. We crush those split tests time and time again. So basically, we've built this. There's another kind of tool that we have called a video conversion audit. And that is something where we basically go through and make sure that people are using the best practices in Vidalytics and in video marketing. It goes beyond just the video funnel or the video in the funnel, but to the whole kind of comprehensive thing. So go to State of VSLs, and that's it.
All right, stateofvsls.com.
Yeah.
We'll definitely check it out. Patrick, thank you for making an appearance on the show.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. This was
until next
fun.
time we chat, have a good one.